Okay. All righty. Well, welcome to this month's Elementor Eastern meetup. It's going to take a while to get used to that. We're going to be talking about how we can use a function or a math function in CSS called clamp to do fluid responsive, make your fonts, and I'll show you some other things it can do too. Make your fonts change size fluidly rather than jumping at a breakpoint, so that even in those sort of in between places where the one for the desktop and the one for the tablet, you get into like that in between space and neither one is right, and so people end up having to make 6 or 8 breakpoints to get everything just right. You don't have to worry about it using the CSS clamp. And but I'll also ask, has anybody ever had anybody before we started talking about this or before we posted this meetup, had anybody ever worked with or heard of clamp? I figured you had, Oscar. I mean, it's basically a math function in CSS, and I was familiar with calc and how that works, but I had never seen clamp before. And I ran across it on a YouTube video about 6 weeks ago, and it was very intriguing. And the idea that you could set your typography in one file and you wouldn't have to touch it again unless you wanted to change it. You just change it in one place. So what is fluid typography? Okay, so we've got this sample page set up, and this, what in the past might have been thought of as a section, it's a container, and this is an inner container, and we've got these headings and paragraph text, and then this is set up to be the fluid responsiveness. And this is just there's just the heading here, which is set. Only thing I said on this bottom part with responsive is this first heading, where it's there's a desktop size and a tablet size and mobile size. And I've also, it works for other things besides just fonts, because we can set padding and margin to containers, and we can set padding and margin to fonts. And you can pretty much use the clamp for anything that uses a pixel value that changes. You want it to change with your viewport. So Brian tells me that it's hard to tell through Zoom when these things are how they're moving, but hopefully you'll be able to tell, because these will change gradually as I shrink the screen down, and you'll see this just jump to a smaller size. So I'll just go through. You can see here now we're getting to about the maximum breakpoint, because we've got it's set up. The width of this, the content width of this page is 1170 pixels. So we're about at 1170 right now. The reason I know that is because I know that this outer container, the padding is set to like 50 top and bottom and 20 left and right. But as we shrink the screen, this will get smaller, top and bottom padding, and the left and right padding. So we'll just go here, and then you'll notice that this heading here, at one point, it's going to just all of a sudden jump to the next size like it normally does with what we've been doing. But you see how the fonts are, the top part are just gradually getting smaller, and you saw that jump. But the top one's just gradually just getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And you'll see the margin is getting smaller and smaller. Eventually to mobile, I can't show you mobile with because I'm doing this in the browser here, but it will eventually get to 0, because we're pretty close to it now. there's probably a couple of pixels left there, and that got smaller. But then it just smooth as silk. And so, you know, like when you get like here, right around here is there, this is sort of a no man's land, you know, you depend where maybe it's about here that you really need the next size down, depending on your font or how your layout is. So you say, okay, well, I need to add another breakpoint. So you make another breakpoint, go in and set all your fonts, and then oh, I need another breakpoint. Because there's some people that do 6, 8 breakpoints in their layout. You don't have to do all that. So then there's the question of why would we want to use this?
Hey, Carrie, I just wanted to interject real quick, because you probably are aware of this, but just in case, and I think it maybe would behave better on Zoom, is in the Chrome inspector that you can like go to, you can click on like device and it'll simulate.
Oh yeah,
device,
yeah.
And there's one responsive. There's one called responsive where it just has a bar that you can drag and make the screen smaller and bigger, and that just might in the future maybe would behave better on Zoom than changing the actual window width, because it makes it like inset inside the window.
Okay, let's see.
Just a thought.
I'll give it a shot. Let's see here. I've got it already in responsive. So tell me again what you were saying about. We're in the inspector.
Pick on the click on those devices over by the left where you were. Yeah. Click on that, and then on the drop down up there where it says iPhone Pro,
right?
Change that to responsive, which is on the top.
And
then you have a little slider you can drag around. So maybe we'll simulate things different.
It might. Yeah, I mean,
I think that actually, at least for me on my Zoom connection, that actually shows it a little better.
Okay. I think I need to clear the cache. Let's see here. Get out of this. Where are we?
You can also on that bottom take that little slider and go down and then have more room. Yeah, and have more. Well, normally I thought you could.
I have to do this.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. All righty. Let me see here. Thought I took. Okay. So why would we want to do this? Because we can set up the CSS clamp, and it's important. This is an important point. You really need to do this at the beginning of the build. Otherwise, you have to go back and undo all the other stuff you did. And you don't have to, after that, you don't have to touch the responsive size settings, you know, like you might normally be used to, of having to go in and set the font size, go to the tablet and set the font size, and go to the mobile and set the font size. And then, but that's on an individual basis, or go through and go through and do all these for each one. You know, you have to go through, you can skip all that, because that's, you'll notice there's nothing set on any of these. So we got that, and we talked about the viewport widths. Another thing to mention too is these settings that I'm going to show you. You want to do it on the desktop. In other words, I'll show you what we're talking about. Let's see here. I'm gonna go back to site settings. And we're going to go to custom CSS. And also I mentioned too that probably most all of you know this, but the base font size for most browsers is 16 pixels, but we go ahead and put that in there just to force it. You doesn't have to be 16 pixels. I know that there are other tools like Bricks Builder has their, I think they call it root font size, is 10 pixels. And they did that so that it's easier to do the math. You know, when you go to 1.5 R rems, you know, you got to go 1.5 times 16. And if you're quick with math, you can realize that's 24. But if it's 10 pixels as your root font size, then it's easy. It's 15. It's, 15. And this is 30, but the 3 rem is 30. So we just, and so where do we get all this stuff? Because how do you figure that out? I'll show you how to do that. You could use this in the individual settings because you can use these clamp values. Let's say you had a special case for some reason. You can go to, let's see if I'm looking in the right place. For padding and margins, you could go in and put clamp values in here, because you notice, you remember in 3.10, they added the pencil. So you can just write whatever you want. You could put those clamp values in here if you wanted to. If you had like a special case for something that you wanted to do. But we'll go back to pixels and site settings. And one thing too, just to mention, is when you're doing this, you need to go back to your Elementor settings. There we go. And check these. Disabled font colors, default fonts. And this, I don't know about you, but does this description, checking this box will disable Elementor's default colors and make Elementor inherit the colors from your theme. It does exactly the opposite of that. And that question was raised in some Elementor leader meetup last year or the year before. And I guess they just didn't hear, because that's a confusing thing. But the reason because when I first started doing this, when I was setting these things up, let's see here, when I was setting these up, pages, typography, Elementor. And I put this in there, it wouldn't work. It just stayed the same. And so then I put important after it, and it worked. And I thought, well, that's not the way that I've seen it done on some video tutorials. But then I realized, so I went and tested it and just clicked those boxes, and now I don't have to have important. It's because it was coming from the default Elementor font sizes. So want to make sure you disable default colors and fonts, but it's the Elementor default colors and fonts. So you go to settings, Elementor settings in general, and you click those. So so where do we get all this stuff? There's a couple of resources. Probably the easiest one to think about is this one here. It's a font clamp generator. And let's see if this will, that link will work by itself. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna put that in case you need it. I'm gonna put it in chat. Okay, you can find it at that link there. And so if you can see that we list these are set up, these clamp settings are based on a minimum width viewport of 380 and a maximum viewport width of 1170, which is the site size. Obviously, because I'm on a Mac Studio, and it's got a 27-inch monitor with, I don't know, 5K or 8K. I don't know how many thousand pixels it is, but the website is 1170. The content area is 1170 wide. So, and then if I'm going to do whatever H1, H2, H3, if I'm going to do a margin, I'm going to do a padding. I put and it says minimum font size, but this will work for padding. It's anything in pixels. And then it changes them to rims, which will make Oscar happy because he likes rims, and he's right. It's a lot better. So
definitely.
So if we were to, let's take a look at what we got here. Let's see, did I take that? I'm going to update this. Okay, let's say I was going to do, well, this is one rim, and so that's 16 pixels, and that's for the, if you look back on this here, this is going to be for the minimum viewpoint size, so 16 pixels. And then it goes up to 1.5 RM. So that's 24, right? Yeah. So let's go back here. And we see this code here. And it should be pretty similar to what we see here. 7595. Close to it. And one was at 5.3. Now, how they come up with this, the part that I don't know, and I'm open to anybody that knows, Oscar or
I was gonna go into the formula, but it decided never mind. I mean, I don't care as long as it works.
yeah,
fine with me.
So it's kind of cryptic to me to how they come up with this. Although there is a page that goes through and makes an attempt to explain how they come up with this. And just for trivia's sake, there's three values. There's the viewport width, pixels, the preferred value, and the applied value. I'm not saying that right. This is the minimum value. This is the preferred value, and this is the large value. And so if you want to read through that, be my guest. It explains how that comes to, and they call it the preferred. So when we're looking at this, that's the minimum value, that's preferred value, and what it's doing is doing a calculation. It's taking a certain amount, percentage or value of rims plus certain value of viewport width. And where these numbers come from, I have no idea. And that article, I think, tries to explain it, but it was opaque to me. But fortunately, we have these tools that take care of it for us. This actually is on a site. I mean, I just started working on today. And I've applied. I'm going to use this. I'm going to use the clamp on this website, and just in the hero image, you can see that they get smaller too. I'll use Mark's idea, and we'll see it. And we'll go. If you can see that, particularly the header, how it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And there's no place in which it doesn't work. There's no no man's land. It works all the way. So the only thing where it kind of jumps is when it goes from 2 or 3 lines. So we can get out of that. Okay, so this is we're talking about, this is the minimum. Let's find this all thing. This is the minimum. These two values added together are the preferred, and this is the max. What they mean by preferred, don't know. So then there's the idea of where to do the CSS. You could, if you wanted, let's say, well, I'll show you an example. I'm going to generate some margins, bottom margin for the H3. So I'm going to want the the minimum font size to be 20 pixels. And well, I should say, we're talking about a margin now. So when it's at full size, I want a 20 pixel margin on the bottom. But then when we get to putting that in the wrong place. Maximum viewport, I want it to be 20. And then on the mobile, basically, I want it to be 0. And you know what? Just to make it show up more, I'm going to make it a negative 20. I was surprised when this worked. So let's see how that works. So we see we got the font size, but I'm not going to copy that. I'm going to copy this. And then we're going to go back over here. And so where's our H3? We got here. I'm just going to go underneath here. I'm going to put margin bottom. And update. And gonna reload. Reload. Yep. So then we go here. I'm gonna clear my cache. Or I know what I can do. I can do it in an incognito window. Although I don't think it'll show the incognito window. Let's see here. Well, Brian, let's see. We had this working before. Oh, I remember what it was. You know what? They need to put important. Why that? Why do I need to do that? Because we don't set margins in our settings. This is not as far as I know. So let's reload this, see if we get any action going on here. Where's this? All right, I see what I was doing. Let's reload this. Now, can you see how the margin between heading 3 and heading 4 is getting smaller?
Nothing's moving on my end.
Watch here.
Nothing. I don't see any change. Probably you're sharing the wrong.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay. Now, can you see it now? You see my cursor moving?
Yes.
And we're going to be looking at the space between these two things. See how they're getting closer together?
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay. So you can do more, you can add margins to your headings, top, bottom, left, right, padding, you can do too. And I'll show you what we've done here with the now for the containers. Now, I couldn't just do, you know, I got to thinking about the padding and margins or whatever for the containers, but you know, in the old days we had sections and we had columns, and now everything's a container. So, but we can use classes because this works with classes, or it can work with IDs. And so what I've done here, if we look at the, I've turned off my bar pages. Let's see here. Fluid typography, edit with Elementor. So we've got this container. Well, let's go with this container. This outer container. I've given it the ID of SG container, and that's just because of the name of the website, StoreGuard. And then on this container, I have SG inner container. So, and then of course, if you went back to the parent container, I have a class of clamp, and that's what we're using. If you'll, where we see clamp, that's from the parent container, and this is specific to the parent container, and this is specific to the inner container. So we have the setting of these different paddings, top, bottom, right, left, and then on the inner container, just have 20 pixels all the way around. And that adjusts. If you know, as we talked about, you can get about here. That's about 1170. And as we got 20 pixels here, and I think it's 50 here or something like that, or more, maybe more. And as we shrink, the top left and right margins, or padding rather, I think they get smaller, and then until eventually we get down to 0. And then of course, if we inspect and we do, so we've got the margins, padding, I don't remember if it's margins or padding, but we've got space here and here. But as it gets smaller, it gets smaller, and then on the left and right, it goes to 0. But once it gets past 380, it doesn't get any smaller. And then once it gets past 1170, it doesn't get any bigger. You're watching the width up here. So we can just set all those, and it works across all devices. So have any of y'all ever used this for anything? You said you were aware of it, Oscar. Have you ever used it?
Yes, I started to use it on a website that is suspended right now, but it works. It works.
Yep. Did you find it beneficial?
Yeah, it definitely works. Works fine. I mean, it's a great tool, and avoids those jumps from breakpoint to breakpoint.
Right.
It makes it fluid. That's the name of it.
Sure. And I was intrigued by it because I don't know, I think I mentioned this before, but I don't know if you've ever had this experience when you're trying to, you've laid out the home page and it's looking good, and then you start doing the responsive, and particularly in things like headers. Sometimes I have clients that have very complicated headers. They've got the logo, they've got a menu or navigation menu, and then they have another bar on top that might have social media stuff, and then a search bar, and maybe buttons that say contact us, and a button that says log in or whatever. They get really complicated, and to get them to do just right, I think it will help me with that too. So
that happens to me, but on the footers.
Yeah, the footers are challenging too sometimes.
Yeah.
And but you can, it just, what doesn't matter what size it is, it stays, it just grows and shrinks to where it works. So, I'm looking forward to playing with it. And has anybody else used Clamp? I guess not, huh?
No, but I just wanted to say I was kind of fiddling with it on my little test page while you were explaining it, and it's pretty cool when you put it in the site settings for the typography.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just playing with it in there, and that makes it really nice.
Yeah, and if you want to, how did I get here? Oh, this is still the incognito window, I think. If you wanted to, you could just, like I said before, put those. Now the font sizes, I don't know that it would work. Get to.
Well, I was in the I was in the typography, and I didn't even know that they had added the little pen ability to like edit the units. So I was in typography, and I was playing with one of my H tags, down there, one of the H elements. So like H1 or whatever. And then I was just changing in typography. I was just changing the font size, and I put the clamp in there. And
yeah, and you can do it that way too.
And that way.
But you have only thing, it's in a bunch of different, it's a lot of different places. And in the CSS, it's kind of easier to see it all at one time, but
oh yeah,
different strokes for different folks. But yeah, you absolutely, you could take those clamp values and just when they're under size,
yeah, it's pretty neat.
Put it right there.
And then I was wondering with this, and I don't know, maybe Oscar, maybe you, since you actually implemented this, did you use one clamp value that goes all the way from the mobile all the way up to your desktop, or did you set different calculations at different responsive ratios? Because I could kind of see a case for wanting your base fonts to be larger in mobile or whatever, to vary the base, I guess. And maybe, the benefit of this is this creates that kind of fluid typography between the breakpoints. But I'm wondering if it makes sense to use some different calculations and like set a different one for mobile, a different one for desktop.
No, this really is not creating fluid fonts between breakpoints. Just there are no breakpoints.
Right. But what I meant is
really
like,
there are no
sure, but like
anymore.
For example, like let's say
the font is going to
right, but what I meant is like but let me explain a use case. Suppose that like your mobile layout is a little different from your desktop layout. Like you have titles stacked differently, so you don't want everything to purely shrink purely relative to it. So you might have to, like, let's say in your mobile layout, just because you have less screen width, maybe make a title that is done a little differently than it is on your desktop. And so you might want the kind of the overall ratios, to not be 100% across all resolutions, to just completely be fluid across all resolutions, but like maybe like do it a little differently in mobile. That's what I was thinking. I don't know. I have to experiment with it.
Well, you might be able to do it with classes. Have a different.
Well, you can just toggle. It looks like, you can just toggle the whatever font you're working on. If you're working, I mean, I'm doing it in the typography area, but if I was doing it in the typography, or I'm doing it wherever to toggle your resolution in Elementor that it applies to, your breakpoints that it applies to, I would assume you could have 3, if you're using the traditional 3, desktop, tablet, and mobile, then I assume you could have 3 different clamps if one wanted, like if I wanted my minimum to be 1.5 REM on the desktop and I wanted it to be 1 REM for the base, for example,
That's music to my ears when I hear REM.
Well, I'm not sure about that, Mark, because if we look at, let's go back.
What made me kind of wonder about this is when I went to that calculator and it had like their kind of like starting point was like, seemed like they were constraining it to mobile resolution. So like when I went there, it was like, I forgot what it was originally set for, but it was something, it was something like a pretty low maximum viewport width. Yeah.
Well, you can
Now it's
you can
remembering
make
what I
this
put
whatever
in.
you want.
Right, exactly. But like their starting point was something like, 380 to like 500 or 560 or something like that. And so I was just kind of curious. I'll have to play with it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Thanks for
and
showing
one
this.
other
This
thing
is
I'll
really
show
great.
you. I think where I first heard about Clamp was from this guy, Imran, I think his name.
Oh
is,
yeah, he's
over
Imran's
at Web
great.
Squadron.
Yeah, he's great.
He's all jazzed up about this, and he's put together this tool that's on his website that you can change the root HTML if you want. Although I'm not sure how you're supposed to do that. Oh, there it goes. So if I can change, because remember I told you like in Bricks Builder, their root base font is 10. You just do it 10. And see, it changes all these automatically. So if I set it to 16, it's 1.6 rems. And then the maximum is 80, it's 8 rems. But then most of the time it's 16. And so that these changed. You can change a minimum. Anyway, this tool, you could go in and say your minimum width, but essentially it's doing the same thing as this does.
Eric, can you share that that URL, please?
Absolutely.
Interesting. I didn't know about it.
That's the guy who does the Web Squadron channel on YouTube.
Yeah.
I think it's Imran Sadiq, I think his name was.
Yep, that's right. Let me find chat here. Okay. Put that in chat. Yeah, it's and he has done he did a video on fonts, and then after he did one on font, then he started generating this clamp calculator, and then he did one on margins and padding for containers, and that's where these come in. And then he did one on images. I'm not sure that this works well for images, because images can be all different kinds of shapes and sizes, and I just can't. Maybe I'm too dense. I can't envision how this would work well for images. But this information, this is kind of basically the same thing as this. Excuse me, as this, except it's all on one. You can see it all at one time. And of course, if you're working on, he's got them set up for margin and padding, but it just all works the same. And now to your question, Mark, about having complete layout. You mean like, I understand what you're saying is that sometimes you have to change the layout on mobile because what you started out with on a desktop just isn't going to work.
Right. So like your example of that website that you showed, you've got you've got your title and you've got some subtitles and things, and you got a little background on that one you're working on. Yeah, that's probably it. Store guard. Yeah. Oh no, maybe. Well, on that one you're working on where you got, like, let's say everything off to the left, and if you were to just scale everything down, everything is going to be kind of, would need to be kind of tiny, doing it that way, that maybe you're doing things a little different and you're hiding certain elements. And so you just might need some tweaking. That's all I was kind of getting at. So that on the mobile, so that maybe that scale, there might be a scale that would work really good in your desktop sizes, or even from tablet to desktop, that maybe on your phone, maybe you need a slightly different scale to tune it in the way you want it.
Well, you know,
But
after I get done building this website, I should have a better idea because I'm gonna be facing all these different kinds of things.
yeah, it's gonna be cool to hear your report after you've
Yeah,
put it together on this.
yeah, and I'm planning on using it and I think it's for some reason this just struck me as being really cool. Maybe it's just because I've had so many times where, as I've been building websites using the traditional, breakpoints and stuff, that you get those in between places where it just doesn't look right. And
Oh yeah.
it's not, it's sort of, I mean, particularly on phones, because God, how many different kinds of phones are there? That
Yep.
and you could I'm not sure if you can have I don't know. We'll just I think I'm just
I was worried I was worried at first that maybe it wasn't like compatible enough, but I checked. I'll paste in the link into chat, but I checked the caniuse.com and it says 93.6.
Yeah, I checked that too.
That's not bad. I usually make my cutoff 95%, but that's close.
Right.
Probably go with it.
Yeah. And some of the ones that are
Opera Mini has a problem, but I don't know. It's probably not that important.
Well, you also have to take into account, I don't know. I think Can I Use, they do have a percentage taken into account of how many people are using which tools.
Yeah.
But that's pretty universally adopted. And of course, most people, at least on a desktop, are using Chrome. And
yeah, it says it on the ones they track, it catches 93% of the desktop, and on the mobile it catches 94%. So I mean, that's not bad. If you're in that 7%, you're used to things looking a little goofy, I think.
Yeah, it's like somebody complaining the website doesn't look right when they're using Internet Explorer 6. It's like,
right, exactly.
So
Hey, Gary.
Okay. Yes, sir.
To make changes on that spreadsheet that this guy from Web Squadron has, just double click one of the cells and you can do it. Just double click.
Yeah. Because this is an Excel spreadsheet that he's embedded in this page. And he's also, I think he did a video on how to do that. But this doesn't change it doesn't change it for anybody else, obviously. And it doesn't change his version of it, but it's just these values you can change, and this is a formula, which is right there. But
it's interesting. I see how he does have the image on there, and that actually could work really good for images. I hadn't really thought about that. Like, that's pretty cool, because that's an area where I usually have issues anyway. Something just being a little too clunky on those in between breakpoints.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking about how many, I mean, like on a home page, like trying to think of one that I can come, let's see, what is this? Cogent. make this bigger. You know, they've got all kinds of different size images on this site. And I don't know, and I don't know how it would work for, like, the images here are inside a widget, you know, the archive widget. So
Yeah.
it's just a matter of having to experiment, I guess. But I'm
tending to think, you know, some of the sites like I do, well, I don't know how y'all do it with blogs, but and I know you can go kind of back and forth, but where like the default blog, like if I'm doing a blog and then the blog pages are effectively using Gutenberg, they're not using Elementor. And so you're using just
right.
kind of in the tiny MC, you're sticking an image off to the right or something like that. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then, you know, this might help with those kind of things. Let's give it a class and then, you know, have it over here where I can control it, the custom CSS using this clamp. That's one of the areas where I was kind of thinking. And I don't know, do any of you use Elementor for actual blog pages? I know that's off to the side. I'm just curious if
You mean the actual post itself?
not, yeah, the post itself. Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't. I'll build a single post template and an archive post archive template. And one of the challenge in, you know, the old way of doing things, like a lot of times people want, you know, they have a body of text and they have an image. Let's say they have, it's a story about, you know, John Smith, who's the new president of some company, and they have his headshot floating to the right. Thing is, though, in just regular, like in the WordPress edit, the regular classic editor, you can float it right, but when you get down to mobile, you get to where, you know, you don't know how narrow the phone's going to be, but the text starts to, you know, it wraps around it, but you might have like just a line that bigger, you know, that big, that has a one word on it all the way down the side of the picture, and that's not. So now we try to, on blog posts at least, have images that can stand alone, like be the width of the post. But
well, that's where I thought maybe this could come in handy by targeting something that, you know, targeting a class that's there, and like, you know, I have to think about it, but I mean, that's where I thought maybe this could maybe come in a little handy for that. But it's experimenting, because I know exactly the problem you're talking about. Like you're on mobile and you've got, like, you know, one word going down the side, you know, and it doesn't work too good.
Yeah, and what I have done, which is not the best, the best way to go, is I've sometimes had two images, you know, one that shows on the tablet and the desktop, and then when I get down to mobile, you know, and then I you know, in the responsive section under advanced, you know, hide it on desktop and tablet, and then only show it on mobile and flip it for the other image. But
yeah, they've got, I know, Elementor makes a plugin to bring like the widgets, Elementor widgets for Gutenberg or something like that, where you can like access, or I don't know if it's widgets or templates, but you can bring in some Elementor components into the blog post that way and everything.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't know how well they're going to support it. I'll try to find the link and I'll paste it into chat for you to look at. I was horsing around with it. I'm going to be starting. I was thinking about starting a blog, and So I've been kind of trying to decide the best way of doing it. I imagine you could just sometimes just take one of your blog posts and just say, I'm going to edit this one in Elementor. Like if you need a complicated post. I mean, the drawback would be is like, you know, I kind of like having the post in the native format,
Mhm.
in the native WordPress, but you know,
Yeah,
if
me
you
too.
get a lot
I'm
of them.
still haven't embraced much Gutenberg. As it matures, I might change my mind, but most of the sites that I have this Gutenberg disabled,
Right.
and largely because most of the sites that I build for clients, the only thing they really edit are blog posts, and Gutenberg it confuses the hell out of them.
Right.
So it's
Yeah, I know. I'm starting to drift away from that because well, as Gutenberg gets more and more development, I was disabling it all the time, but you know, I'm getting, you know, questions about it and things. And so I may be looking at that. I want to be careful that I'm not just dissing Gutenberg fully, but
well, at some point we'll probably have to embrace it because that's
Yeah.
what it is. But
I put that plugin into the chat.
okay.
That and then Elementor actually, when they did this in 2018, they've last updated, I think it was like 6 months ago. There's also an article on the Elementor site about it, and it allows you to bring blocks into Gutenberg. So that's one way I was looking at in terms of getting some stuff into the post, because I'm going to probably have some more complicated posts.
Okay.
I'll be doing that. Anyway, I kind of sidetracked things. Sorry, but
No,
that's
that's
I think I think that's where I'm kind of most interested with this, is because I don't really have full control of those posts, you know. So juggling the theme settings and the headings and everything like that, and kind of having that in there, that's pretty cool.
okay. Well, thank you. I didn't know about this. So does anybody use that that's on the call? Okay. Well, we'll see how it works. Okay, let's see. And I showed you.
Speaking about Elementor and Gutenberg, the only thing that I have used is the short code, being able to take a short code and put it into Gutenberg and have Elementor show up in there.
Yep, you're right. I've done that. Trying to think if there's if there was any downside to that, other than if you were migrating a site, might be challenging. Sort of like in the days when they had themes that would, if you were using something from the theme, like elements from the theme builder, not talking about Elementor, but just talking about off-the-shelf themes, pre-made themes, and then you exported all your posts into a new site, you'd get all these short codes in your import, which was a pain. But so we got about 20 minutes or so. Do we have any questions on this or any other Elementor type things? Something that you've been struggling with, something that you've discovered that you're just really think is cool?
Hey, Carrie, just probably a dumb question. Do you ever get frustrated by new functionality, thinking, you know, if I only had this a year or two ago, or have you ever wanted to go back to a previous project and just kind of redo it, thinking, you know, I could make this so much better?
Oh, yeah. But I usually, unless it's my website or something that's a personal project, I'm not inclined to do it unless somebody's going to pay me to do it.
Exactly. No, exactly. But you know, I've been doing programming for 50 years now, and
Right.
it just amazes me, the new technology and new functionality.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, I've been building websites since 1995, and back when people were on dial-up modems and nobody had any bandwidth, and most screen sizes were 800 by 600 pixels.
Gary, when you and I were starting, because I'm around the same time, my first website was 94, and I we didn't have CSS. I remember I went to Microsoft's, like in San Francisco, they had a big thing to promote CSS and in their browser, because they were debuting it first or whatever. And there's many of my clients had all the font size, font color, font size, all that old tags in there and everything like that. And I think about how many my clients I've redesigned so many times, but I got paid each time, right?
Yeah, right.
So I mean, the way I see it is that's a benefit. It means some repeat. In fact, things are maybe a little too stabilized now. It used to be every 3-4 years you kind of had to do a redesign.
Yep.
Those were the beautiful days of Notepad, Netscape.
Yep, exactly. You got it, Austin.
I remember.
Yeah, I had forgotten about what you said about before there was CSS, how we did that.
Oh, and we were using tables for the layout, chopping up
Oh,
graphics,
God.
sticking it in there
Yeah.
everywhere.
That's
and
something.
slicing
That's
it up.
something that if they can solve that, to make tables work from desktop to mobile.
Yeah, that's
I'm not sure. If
I'm
somebody can figure that out, that would be awesome.
I'm with you on there. That seems to be a weak point.
Because I have clients that will want to put a big table, or a table that has 8 columns, and some of those columns have lots of words in them, and they want it to be in, and this is not WordPress, but they might want it in an email that they send out. And I would have to tell them, this is not going to work on a phone. It's just not going to work. And I mean, you can get the scroll bar in there, but that's not, and I'm sure somebody will figure that out. And I know different people have tried. In fact, I've seen major Elementor add-on developers or that have products do it, and then they just dump it because they can't ever get it to work right. And so
when we're all done with the clamp talk, one question I had, because I've been kind of out of things for a few months, I'm going through a lot of rough stuff on my end.
okay.
I'm curious about this bricks and what
Okay.
y'all think about. You mentioned it, Carrie, earlier when you were talking about the root font size and everything. But
right. Yeah.
What do y'all think about that?
Well, it's for a product that is still relatively new. I don't think it came out. I think it came out 2021, maybe 2020. You familiar with Dave Foy?
Yeah.
He used to be a big Elementor advocate, and he did one of the best courses on using Elementor when people when they first start. And he is just completed a bricks. He's gone over to Bricks Builder.
Mm-hmm.
I think the 3.0 debacle really sort of broke his spirit for Elementor when they went to, you remember all the problems that there were when they
Yeah.
came out with 3.0, and they were coming out with a patch every 2 hours. It seemed like, within several days you were on 3.1.12 or something. And I saw him interviewed several times about different things. And I mean, I know he looked at generate blocks or generate press. There's a whole bunch of them out there. And anyway, he has just done a intro course to Bricks Builder. I don't think he hasn't done the full release, or he hasn't. He did a limited launched where you paid up front at a discounted price, and then he'd drip it out as he got it to where you got the whole thing. Now he's finished the whole thing. So of course it'll cost more, but from what I can tell, it's seems to be pretty good. I'm just not sure that it would be able to. It doesn't have as large an ecosystem as Elementor does.
Yeah.
And I don't know if y'all have customers like this. I have customers that come up with all these. They say, "Can I do this?" Or they'll, and it's like it's some weird thing that they want to do, or some out of the, and sounds like a fine idea. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just it's something that Elementor won't do. But you might have an add-on that does it. But I'm wondering how many things that are going to be that people want that you can't do with Bricks Builder.
Right.
Sort of like you can't do with Gutenberg. I mean, you really can't do with a lot in Gutenberg, I don't think. At this point, it's getting better and getting better, and I really shouldn't make judgments on it because I haven't followed it that closely. But I check in on it every now and again, and it's still, compared to what we can do with Elementor, it's light year. It seems to me
It's starting to catch up pretty quick, though. I mean,
Yeah.
from dipping into it. I mean, the Gutenberg and everything. So I've been kind of ignoring it, and then just exactly like you, checking in from here and there. So what I like is that there's pressure coming from these different areas on Elementor, and I like how Elementor, it's tough because they can't break the old sites, so everything has to be slowed down, whereas someone like Bricks comes out more recently, they have an advantage. Even Gutenberg has an advantage in a sense because it's built into the can, and they can go and they can look at the missteps of other page builders as they go and turn Gutenberg into a page builder. But it's I like where Elementor's been going lately with everything, and I'm really all about the speed of the websites, and the optimization is really important for me, and I'm happy that they've been putting on a lot of focus on that.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that about speed, because I had wanted to point this out, show you all this. Where the heck is it? Get out of this. I don't want it. Let's see here. This is a cool site. I'll put it. It's bulkresizePhotos.com. You can take your JPEGs and your pings, and just drop it in here, and it'll turn it to a WebP format, which is the next generation format. And it reduces the font, the file size. Even when it's at 80%, it'll reduce the file size maybe down to 5 or 10% of what the original file size was.
Wow.
And I'll put that in chat. You can check it out. I'm started using it just this week. Where the heck am I? Come on, there we go. Put that in there. And you just And you can do multiple, you could go into your your file directory, and let's say you've got 20 images that you've already sized and done whatever you want to do to them, and they're JPEGs or PNGs, and you can select 10, 20 images and then drag them onto this box, and it'll do all of them relatively quickly, and then you can just download them, and it makes a huge difference in terms of speed. But also, if you've ever looked at I think it's Page Speed Insights, when it looks at it, it'll I don't know if they penalize you for it, but you get a little notice that you're not using next generation fonts.
Mhm.
And so that, I mean, some of the websites that I've had people ask for lately, like, and of course, Brian's gonna get sick of seeing this site, but there's
Mhm.
like on this site, there's a lot of images on this page. And I don't know how many there are, but there's a lot. So if you could, even if you only reduced it by half, and of course they're all optimized this to a degree, but and they're bigger than they're showing. Because I think they're 400 pixels by 400 pixels. We can do 10. They're actually bigger than they show, but that's because at some point they get bigger because it goes to a single column. But so what it's the cumulative effect of having a bunch of pictures that can be affected the speed of the site. Now you still are having to do the requests, but you okay. So anyway, enough on that. Y'all all familiar with the idea of WebP images? Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yes.
when they first came out with it, WordPress didn't support it, and I don't remember when they started, but they do now.
Mhm.
So you can pop your WebPs in there all you want, and I would highly recommend doing that.
Yeah.
So
Isn't there a problem with WordPress and uploading WebP?
not
They
now.
Did they? Okay, they had a plugin, a separate plugin for a while, but they've integrated it into WordPress now.
Yeah, I did
WebP?
it this week. I uploaded some WebP images into a WordPress website. No problem.
Okay. I mean, I was thinking that if you dropped a JPEG in there, it would convert it, but obviously not.
I mean, WordPress would do it?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
no. And they, who knows? They may end up. That'd actually be a pretty good plugin.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that'd be practical to do, because it would take up the plugin. It'd have to be doing some. I don't know if that would. It'd probably be a good idea for plugin if they could make it work to where you just. Well, actually, there is a plugin. I don't remember if I think it's called Short Pixel Optimizer, but you have to pay for it. I mean, it's like one of those AppSumo type things where you pay one time and you can use it, and you get like 10,000 credits a month or something. I don't remember what the number, but and now you can with that tool, you can tell it to convert the images to WebP format. But they charge extra credits for that. So you'll use up their limit. So it can be done, but I'm not aware of a plugin that will just do that. Let's see.
The plugin was called Performance Lab, and I downloaded it. It's in the WordPress repository. Creates WebP versions for new JPEG images uploads if supported by the server.
Mhm.
And the plugin is called Performance Lab. It's by the WordPress performance team.
Let's see here.
Heard about that Performance Lab, but never used it.
It works. I uploaded some JPEGs and got it was WebP when I looked into the library, media library.
Let me see if I can find it. Performance Lab.
Yes, Performance Lab.
It just does JPEGs, I guess. Because I believe, like if you have a .png file that has transparent background, I believe this site, it'll still work on that, I believe.
Oh, cool.
I'm not sure I've done one with a transparent, like sometimes you might have an icon or a logo, but it's round and it's a square image, obviously, and you've got transparent pixels around the outside. I haven't tried one of those in this. So, but that other one. This might convert. That's 200,000 installations, so
Yeah.
might be interesting. So, okay. What would y'all like to see on a meetup topic? Y'all have any suggestions for a meetup topic? Because Brian and I are always casting about for topics that haven't been beat to death.
Corey, if you allow me, I have, maybe it's not a suggestion. I have a question, but it can be like a suggestion. Is there a way, we know that with the loop, we can create the archive for the post or also maybe for custom posts. But is there a way to do it for categories or custom post categories to do that? I don't know if you understand what I meant.
Yeah, you're talking about, can you do a custom loop for category?
Yeah.
Well, you would do that in the query. you know, where you tell it what to look at, what to look for. I think you could do that with a query. Does that make sense?
That's how you do it.
Yes, I tried to do that, but it only showed me posts, even WordPress posts or custom posts, but not categories.
I don't get it.
Yes, when you choose include by, you want to choose term.
Oh, no, but what you are doing there is filtering. That means you are going to show posts from that category, but no, what I want to show in the archive or in the loop is the categories actually.
Oh, like the category names.
Yeah, and then when you click on that, then you go to the posts that belong to that category. But that's why I haven't, I don't know how to do it with, obviously with Elementor.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Do you know how to do that?
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question.
He
I-
wants to show, he wants to loop through the category names, titles, names, yeah.
What's the loop? You want to loop through all the posts in a particular category?
No, the category name.
What I understand is he has a custom post type, or he has posts on several categories.
Yes.
Wants to list the categories, and when you click in one of those categories, it will only pull the posts that correspond to that category.
Yes, maybe an example. Maybe an example is if you have a custom post that is for cars, and then you have a custom fields. No, that is the model, the brand, the color for that car. Then the category is, I don't know, the brands for Honda, Nissan. So what I want to do is a loop for in this case, for the brands, for Ford, or Chevrolet, and so on. And when you click on Ford, then you go to the custom post that is for that brand. I mean, I don't know, the brand is for Mustang or for Ranger. No, that's what I put. The loop is for how to create the loop for the categories. In this case, for the brands of the cars. Because I know how to make a loop for the post and maybe filtering, as Catherine said, for that brand, but that is not what I meant.
Well, I'm not sure I'm following, but because like on this is something a little is different, but these are all these are all custom post type posts. These images that are links to posts. It's custom post type team member, but they also all have categories. So if I wanted to see the legal people, these are the legal people.
Exactly.
If I wanted to do engineering,
what you have on the screen, imagine that instead of looking in that case for you to Kirk and Gina, you are watching accounting and finance, construction and development, engineering and legal, but instead of with the pictures. And when you click on Gina, that is not Gina, that will be legal. Then you go to the person that work on that.
and then you click on that, and it takes you to the post.
Yes. No, but you go back, instead of taking to the post, imagine that you have, instead of those pictures, you have accounting, construction and development. Where it says Rob Hicks, imagine that you have accounting and finance. Where it says Steve, you have construction and development. Instead of Greg, you have engineering. And when you click on one of those, then you go to that category.
I don't get it.
Well, what this is doing is filtering, because all these people that show up, like the 3 people that show up here, or 2 people, they're already on the page.
But the archive is an archive of posts, correct?
I'm sorry, I'm not following. But if you want to, you can email me, Juan, at I'll put my email address in the chat. If you want to email me and describe what you want, and maybe Brian and I can figure out a solution for you. So,
Okay, yeah, thank you. I will.
okay, that's my email address. And you can, just describe in as much detail as you can what you want to do, and maybe if you've seen it done somewhere, an example, then maybe Brian and I can look at it and see if we can figure out how to help you with that. So,
Yes, I actually have an example. Here is let me put it on the chat. If you go to exploring.org, in that website, I can show you the example of what I meant.
exploring.org. Okay.
Okay, look, if you click this on activity library,
Click on what?
in the bottom of the middle, activity library.
Okay.
Okay, then you go down, please. What you see on the left, when exploring career fields, is a category, and arts and humanities is a category that is children of that. All right? So arts and humanities, aviation, and until social services are children from exploring career fields. Okay?
Okay.
So if you click on the right side, that is the loop. But it is the loop of the father categories. If you click on exploring careers, it takes you to the children. If you can see up the right, please click on exploring career fields. And there is a loop of aviation, business, those are the categories children from exploring careers. And if you click on aviation, then those ones at the right are the loop of the posts.
For aviation.
Yeah, for aviation. If you click on advanced power plants,
Yeah.
that is the custom post.
Right. Got it. Okay. So what they've got here, this is like a post archive
Correct.
page with
Post.
with
That's
posts, and it's looping for the term, whether that's a category or a tag.
Yeah.
It's taking all the arts and humanities and putting, I guess that's what that is, or aviation rather. These are all the aviation posts.
Yes.
And then you click on this, and this takes you to a different archive page with just business posts. And these are sort of like, it's like an archive page. And,
yes.
And so,
but the father exploring career fields, it's an archive of the children categories.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay.
But what you're watching is coded with PHP directly.
Okay.
So how to do that with Elementor?
Well, these could all be categories. It would be cumbersome to build. Well, they all have the same layout. But you've got the career fields as the parent parent category. This is a child of the exploring career fields,
Yeah,
and I guess they don't have anything there. But, and then these, you've got aviation as a category, and these are the posts that are in the aviation category, and
yes,
so on and so forth, but no, I can understand and see how, I know how you could do this, but I'm not sure I was getting what you were asking about. If you could send an email, that would be great. We have passed the time, and I really do want to respect people's time. So any closing words? Anybody got something they need to say? You got any words of wisdom for us, Brian?
Look both ways before you cross the road.
Okay.
Gonna stop recording.
Yeah, we'll stop it. And if I can get this out of the way.